What's up, everybody? I hope you're all having a fantastic week so far. Welcome back to the channel for another playoff episode of the Ask Me Anything series. Some real interesting things to talk about in this video. There's already some controversy in the Western Conference Finals due to a certain offside call, or I guess I should say onside call in last night's game. You guys asked a ton of questions about that, so I will give you guys my thoughts on it in this video. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to every single one of you who took the time to come up with a question and leave it on the post. Even the ones that don't get featured in the video, just know I read every single one and I appreciate all of you guys. And I guess we'll just start off with the offside or onside call. This question came from Monkey, who said, just as recent Cale Makar's offside goal is being talked a lot, do you think it was a good goal or it's offside? So initially when I seen the replay, I figured that goal would be coming back 1000% and that it was offside very clearly, but that's because I didn't actually know that particular rule that actually came into play when they were determining if it was a good goal or not. Elliot Friedman broke it down really well during the intermission. Basically, Cale Makar pushed the puck into the zone, but then once it entered the zone, he didn't touch the puck again until Valeri Nichushkin came back out of the offensive zone, and then they both went in at the same time. Here's a photo that I took from Twitter. As you can see, Cale Makar's not touching the puck once it first enters the zone, and he doesn't actually regain full possession until, like I said, Nichushkin checks up and comes out and then goes back in. So technically, by the rule, this is a good goal, and I think they made the right call by the rule book, but I will say I think that's kind of a lame rule because you're telling me that the puck being 1 inch away from his stick or however many inches away in this picture isn't him having full possession. So there was definitely a lot of moving factors when it came to making this call, and like I said, I do think they got it right, obviously, when you go by the rules, but again, like I said, I think it's kind of a lame rule because to me, Cale Makar had full possession of the puck, even if it wasn't touching his stick at that exact moment. So those are my thoughts on that onside call. Let's now move on to the next question. This one comes from Noam Levy, who says, what will Evander Kane's new contract look like? This playoff performance definitely earned him a couple more $1 million. It's actually funny you asked that question now. I believe his agent tweeted out a money bag sign after he scored the first goal last night. I 1000% agree with you. His playoff performance has definitely earned him some more money on his next contract. There's nobody in the playoffs right now with more goals than Evander Kane. It's hard to say exactly what his contract will look like, but I would have to guess the AAV will be probably north of $5 million a season, and if I'm Kane, I'm staying in Edmonton. It just seems like a really good fit there, but obviously once the open market hits, if they don't re-sign him before free agency opens, anything can happen because at that point it just becomes a bidding war. But I'm interested to hear your guys' take on this, so let me know down below. What do you think Evander Kane's next contract will look like? The AAV, the term, all that kind of stuff, what team he's going to sign with. The next question we have comes from Larry Vitch, who says, do you think the Canes should reconsider their goalie tandem? Anderson and Ronta are both great goaltenders, but in my opinion, their injury history makes the tandem way too risky. Well, that's a valid point. Obviously, Anderson's health kind of failed him at the most critical time of the season, and then Antti Ronta went down in Game 7, but they're both still under contract through next season, and Freddie Anderson did play 52 games in the regular season. He was one of the better goalies in the league this year. Sure, in his final season with the Maple Leafs, there was a lot of injury stuff going on, but for the majority of his career, he's kind of a workhorse. He's had seasons in which he's played like 66 plus games, so I definitely don't think you make any changes to the goaltending tandem this offseason. Ronta and Anderson are both heading into the final year of their deals anyways, so I feel like they've earned the right to just ride out their contract with Carolina because, like I said, Anderson was one of the better goalies in the league this year, and then when he went down, Antti Ronta was very good in the postseason despite Carolina, falling in Game 7 of the second round. Moving along now, the next question we have comes from Fadu, who says, with Jake DeBrusk playing the way he did this year, do you see him getting traded because of his trade request or staying in Boston? This is a really interesting question because after Jake DeBrusk requested a trade, he immediately took his game to like another level and actually became a very, very important contributor for Boston for like the remainder of the season. He was just 2 goals shy of tying his career high, which is 27. I do still feel like he probably gets dealt because if I'm not mistaken, like towards the end of the season, Jake DeBrusk did say that he still wants his request to be fulfilled, even though he was performing much better than he was before the trade request. But if you're Boston, either way, you got to be happy with the way he played this year because even if he still wants to be traded, his value is most likely a lot higher now than it was a year ago. The next question we have comes from Hugh Barker, who says, do the Oilers go with Koskinen in Game 2? I'm definitely going to say no. I mean, Mike Smith had a similar performance to this one in Game 1 against Calgary and then was lights out for the remainder of the series. And at this point, it just seems like Mike Smith isn't a fan of Game 1s in these playoffs. In the 3 Game 1s, he has an .814 save percentage, but then after game ones in these playoffs, he has a .950 save percentage, so pretty crazy splits there. So I definitely think you give him a chance to bounce back in game 2. He's proven that he can bounce back after a poor game 1 already multiple times in these playoffs, so I think you gotta stick with him. And then maybe if he has another poor performance in game 2, then you can think about putting Mikko Koskinen in game 3. The next question we have comes from Doggo, who says the Carolina Hurricanes were 7-0 at home heading into game 7. They lost 6-2 against the Rangers. What do you think they did wrong in that game, and do you think they will have any big changes this offseason? And also, thank you for the kind words. Man, what a weird playoff run it was for Carolina. Obviously, it was impressive that they were able to go 7-0 at home leading up to game 7, but it's just as unimpressive that they weren't able to win a road game. You have to win road games if you want to win a Stanley Cup. They were not going to go undefeated for the entire playoffs. They were going to lose at some point on home ice. Unfortunately for them, it just came in game 7 of the second round. Now, as far as the part of your question, are they going to make any big changes? I wouldn't say they're going to make any big changes. Like, I can't see them moving any of the real core players, you know, Jacob Slavin, Sebastian Aho, Teuvo Teravainen, Andrei Svechnikov. Those guys are all still going to be there next year, but I am interested to see what happens with some of their pending UFAs like Vincent Trocheck, who is obviously a very important player for them this season, and also Tony DeAngelo, who was only on, you know, a 1-year, $1 million deal. Are they going to bring him back? Is another team going to try to pay him more? What's going to happen there? So I definitely think the core guys that I mentioned will stay intact and be there next season, but I think there's a good chance that the rest of their lineup could shake up a little bit. The next question we have comes from Kia, who says, what do the Leafs do with their goaltending this offseason after hearing reports that Campbell may not return? I'm pretty sure it was Chris Johnson that said this. If not him, it was a pretty big reputable insider. They said that if Campbell can't come back, the Leafs are just going to look for the next Jack Campbell, you know, a relatively unproven goaltender who in small sample sizes has put up good numbers. A name that I threw out there was Casey DeSmith, maybe as a potential option there. I really don't think Toronto's going to go out there and try to, you know, spend a lot of money on a goaltender in free agency like somebody like Marc-Andre Fleury, just because if they're going to do that, then they would just re-sign Campbell, right? But the reason that they most likely aren't going to be able to is because he probably priced himself out of Toronto with the way he's played. Obviously, the Leafs don't have a lot of cap space. I definitely think there's potential we see them trade Peter Mrazek to try to free up some cap space so that they're able to bring back Campbell and then, you know, just sign a really cheap backup option. That's something I think we could see. Next up, this question comes from Zylan, who says the Flyers want to aggressively retool this offseason. From what I've heard, if they do retool this offseason, what moves do you think they should make if they want any hope of making the postseason next year? The thing that makes aggressively retooling or heading into a minor rebuild kind of difficult for Philadelphia is the fact that they have so many guys with like long-term deals still. Like Kevin Hayes has a bunch of years left, Atkinson, Konechny, Farabee, but Farabee's a guy you want there long-term anyways. Rasmus Ristolainen, and obviously he didn't have a great year. Another one is Sean Couturier, Ryan Ellis. They're definitely in a really weird spot right now, and honestly, I'm not even sure if I know the answer to this question. Like, what would I do? Again, I just don't think there's much you can do with that roster. There's not a whole lot of flexibility there. I feel like the most likely scenario is they make a couple minor tweaks this offseason and try to push for a playoff spot next year, because again, that's kind of the only choice they have with this roster. Next up, this question comes from Wizard Tower, who says, let's just say every current UFA goes to free agency. What is your dream signing or signings for your Red Wings team? Now, this is a fun question, but I kind of want to make my answers realistic, because I would just say, oh, I want them to sign Malkin, Letang, Forsberg, Gaudreau, you know, all those guys. But for the majority of those players, the timeline just doesn't line up. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Detroit to go out and sign players like that to long-term big money deals. Since the Red Wings have such a big hole at the 2C position, I would say a guy like Vincent Trocheck, I feel like that's, you know, kind of a realistic option for the Red Wings. I would be a huge fan if they were able to bring him in. Another name I'll throw out there is Andrew Kopp. I would love if Steve Eisman was able to bring him into Detroit. He's also probably going to be one of the younger free agents out there, unrestricted free agents, I should say. But I feel like the price on Andrew Kopp might be a little bit scary, because he's absolutely lighting it up for the New York Rangers, you know, after the trade deadline. He's carried that into the postseason, so he's probably going to get a pretty big contract this offseason. So that is going to wrap up today's episode of the Ask Me Anything series. As always, feel free to let me know down below in the comment section all of your thoughts on anything that we talked about in today's video that you might want to give your opinion on. And while you're down there, if you could, please be sure to drop a like on this video. That is the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.